Hey friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I recently test drove the 2016 Chevrolet Silverado Z71 and the Ram Rebel, two trucks that are the highest off-road packages offered by those manufacturers. So decided to do a face-off, put the two videos together and see which truck comes out on top. Among the new for 2016 stuff is the big up front you see here. The Silverado gets new grille designs across the board as well as a reshaped bumper fascia with new trims. Our LTZ Z71 here has a body color grille and LED headlights with the latest Las Vegas style accents. The hood design is new too, with a nice sculpted look and some insets that look perfect for heat extractor vents someday down the road if Chevrolet ever offers a high performance package. Our tester here was also upgraded with the 20-inch chrome wheels that, while big, still don't look like it in their huge square openings. At the rear, the LTZ gets LED tail lamps to go along with its body-colored bumper, which still sports Chevrolet's now trademark steps. Also optioned on our tester was a sturdy set of chrome step rails with heavy rubber grips. The power-sliding rear window was a nice touch too. The Rebel continues the Ram brand's movement into the off-road side of the truck market, offering up a combination of rugged visuals and big-boned hardware underneath to back them up. It's a truck they aim to impress at the curb and satisfy with out on the trail. For now, the Rebel comes only in a crew cab with a 5.5-foot bed, stepping it up an inch in ride height with special 17-inch wheels with 33-inch Toyo off-road tires. Around them are black plastic fender flares, and while ours didn't have it optioned, you can also get a blacked out lower graphic treatment that ties it all together. The face is really where this truck looks different, with its unique black grille, large round block lettering, and blacked out projector beam headlights. There's LED daytime running lights and fog lights along with a unique powder coated bumper and separate skid plate element. It's all topped off with a raised twin snorkel hood. Ours had the optional Ram box bed, which I have to admit I was pretty impressed with. The locking bins are watertight but have plugs to drain them. They swallow up 10-gallon bottles, as I found out while grocery shopping. And additionally, when you get the Ram box, you don't give up capability. I also brought home a pallet of flooring from my local home center during my week with it, a pallet that still fit in between the boxes with room to spare. Under the hood is a 5.3-liter Ecotec V8, which this year is now available in the LTZ with an 8-speed automatic transmission. This, with the engine's variable valve timing, direct injection, and variable displacement, contribute to a higher fuel economy to go with its 355 horsepower. So what you just heard there is Chevrolet's way of tuning the sound of this vehicle. Some of the truck makers, like the last generation Nissan Titan, they gave you a loud growl with an exhaust note. Ford, actually not much different than this. Ram likes a little bit more V8 sound. I think General Motors here has sort of settled in on this, more of a smooth, distant kind of rumble. It doesn't really hit you in the face with a fist when it comes to engine sound. So if you like the Chevy truck and you want some exhaust note, you're gonna have to get yourself some Flowmasters. But what I found is power is adequate here. It's not quite as much as the Toyota Tundra, obviously, and Ford's EcoBoost 3.5, even though the horsepower isn't that much different, that engine does give you a little bit more of a push in the back than this does. And in the Ram, well, they're 5.7 Hemi at least. It gives you a little bit more drama, so I don't know how it actually clocks out if you're timing the thing for acceleration, but that engine certainly makes you feel like you're blowing and going. This one just feels a little bit more relaxed. Motivating the Ram Rebel 4x4 is a standard 3.6-liter V6, but optioned on ours was the 5.7-liter Hemi V8 with 395 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque. Here it comes with an 8-speed automatic transmission and part-time 4-wheel drive. This has a nice power curve, even though this isn't the largest and most powerful engine that Ram offers in their truck line. It's got plenty for this truck, even being that it's large and it has the off-road suspension that typically slows these things down. But it's pretty pleasing, and this 8-speed transmission is definitely the ticket because it really does offer more drivability. It makes sure that you have more opportunity to have this engine in its sweet spot when you're really pushing it hard. Moving on to the chassis, the Z71 package on our tester here gets you a number of upgrades. Among them are heavier-duty Rancho off-road shocks, an auto-locking rear differential, a skid plate for the transfer case, and the all-important Z71 graphics.
Now, one thing I always love to do is bring a truck or a crossover or a sport utility vehicle out here to the desert washboard road. And this is because even though this isn't really hardcore off-roading, it does a great job of showing how well put together this is, how well sorted the chassis is, and how well it isolates this rhythmic vibrating surface through the chassis, through the structure. And what I'm finding out here is that, well, like my past experience with GM pickup trucks, is it's got a pretty stiff suspension. And so that translates a lot of rhythm up into the structure and into the interior here. And that can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on what your tastes are. Basically what I'm saying is this has a stiff ride, so all of these bumps and this washboard surface, it's just transmitting in here pretty strongly, and it makes this chassis just a little bit on the skittery side, I think, which is to say you can feel it sort of doing the dance around here on this surface. The other thing I'm noticing too is just a little bit of vibration and a little bit of shuddering on the interior trims here over some of these surfaces. And I bring it up because in a comparative sense, the last Ford F-150 I drove out here, which was one of the new aluminum body trucks, it was pretty shaky out here. Also, the Toyota Tundra that I drove out here, that one I'd say was a great example of a truck that was very tight. The ride was very well isolated from a lot of this shaking and shuddering. Now, taking this off that washboard road onto a more challenging off-road environment here, I'm finding that even though this is a very large truck, it's still pretty nimble. The steering has it's pretty light, so it doesn't feel like it's too heavy, too clumsy out here. But like that washboard road, one of the things I am finding is that this is a very stiffly sprung suspension. It does beat you around quite a bit out here on some of the rougher stuff. And some of that might be attributable to its larger 20-inch wheels. But I am noticing quite a bit of crashing going on with the suspension as it really comes up and hits those bumpers. So it's a choice they've made in tuning the suspension very stiffly. And some people like that. For me, it's just always been my off-road preference for a bit more compliance so that you can really blow and go out here without getting beat to death. Now, even though I spent a lot of time off-roading this thing and sort of getting out in the dirt, 99% of the people that own this truck are going to be spending it right here on the highway where I'm at right now. And here, it does exactly what it's meant to. It offers a very quiet and stable ride. The chassis doesn't feel flittery at all, and that basically means I'm not getting any nervousness or shuddering over this less than smooth highway. Sometimes trucks can be a little bit like that because they don't have a stiff enough frame or the body isn't as stiff as it could be. Not happening here. This actually has a very nice stable ride, which is comfortable, and, well, it's quiet. Its core hardware starts with a specially tuned version of Ram's air suspension with a 1-inch add-in ride height. Bilstein dampers front and rear and a softer rear anti-roll bar add additional ride improvements and articulation in the rough. And so what I'm finding out here is that this is a truck. It has a stiffer ride, and because trucks have a really stiff frame and the body's sort of separate in different pieces, you do get a little bit more jitteriness and a little bit more shuddering than you would in a unibody vehicle like a crossover SUV. But still, I'm finding that this has a softer, a little bit more controlled ride than some of the trucks I've tested out here recently. Examples being the Chevrolet Z71 and the Ford F-150. Those two trucks felt a lot more nervous out here on this road than this does. This air suspension, being rubbery as it is, it's doing a pretty good job of absorbing a lot of the harshness and just sort of giving you a nice, quiet, comfortable ride out here. The air suspension is automatic for the most part, but you can manually adjust it to raise it up for off-road height for more challenging situations. The front suspension and alignment specs were modified on the Rebel to optimize it for these situations. out here on my favorite off-road trail, and this is not really hardcore off-roading like down in 4-low crawling up rocks. This is really more about seeing how maneuverable the truck is out here on a tighter trail that's a little bit rougher, and it really just gives me a good idea of how the suspension's tuned, how well it rides. And what I'm finding here is that this air suspension is really kind of a nice friend, because unlike a lot of other trucks that are really set up for off-roading, it doesn't ride so rough that it beats you to death. It actually gives you, very much like out there on the washboard road, it has kind of a rubbery, sort of isolated feel, and that's always my preference when it comes to off-road trucks. And going through some of the washes over the rocks and bumps here, it's just nice and comfortable. And with this nice light steering feel that this thing has, it's just a very comfortable truck to bring out here off the beaten path. And I like that. The suspension, I'll add, also lowers at highway speed automatically for better stability and fuel economy on the highway, where admittedly most drivers are going to be spending their time. Riding out here on the highway, this has a great ride. It's nice and solid, it's firm, yet it's isolated from the rough stuff, and it's also quiet. Not a lot of wind noise, very little road noise, and that's actually kind of surprising, because these tires, being off-road tires that they are, now a lot of times you get road noise from those things, some hum. None of that going on here. They're very quiet, and so it all plays into just a nice comfortable existence here if you do a lot of highway driving in this truck. Well, which one came out on top? I have to give the edge to the Ram Rebel, because it's got a more comprehensive off-road suspension, tires and wheels, the whole 9 yards. If you're into off-roading, that is the best of these two trucks. The Z71 was really sort of hampered by those 20-inch wheels, I think, and the fact that it just didn't really have much more than shocks and a couple little doodads, a sticker set, as an off-road package. Ram really stepped it up with that air suspension that's adjustable, and the off-road tires and wheels that really give you a lot of forgiveness out there on the rough stuff. It rides better. You don't have to worry about them as much going over some of the rocks and other things that you might actually do if you're off-roading. The Z71, and at least the one that we tested here in the LTZ trim grade, those 20-inch wheels, they just don't go together with off-roading, I don't think, and it showed up in how the trucks ride, both on and off the road. So that is sort of where I come on this. Now, if you're a brand loyalist, I'm probably going to be wrong if you're a Chevy or GM guy. That's just how this thing goes. But if you want to get more detail on how I actually looked at these two trucks, check out our test drives. We have 2 distinct test drives on these trucks. Down below in the information section, there's links down there. You can see the whole thing. Now, I also invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we do test drive a lot of trucks, and we actually have an F-150 of 2016 coming up next week. And if you subscribe by clicking on that link right there, you're going to get a notification on that when it comes. Now, if you subscribe after that time, check on the link set down below, and I'll probably add that down there as well. Until then, stay tuned.